This is also an opportunity then to firstly thank all of you for coming, especially those who came 3 weeks in a row, Kol HaKavod. And I hope that this really does enhance one's Purim, because as we know, Shloshim Yom Lefnei HaChag, we started 30 days before the Chag to not only lidrosh binyanei HaChag, but truly to try to appreciate some of the more hidden messages in Megillat Esther. So on this time and on that note, I'd also like to thank Beit Avichai for really serving as the Achsanai Bemet for hosting such wonderful shiurim, which now affords us an opportunity to take a look at the last of the messages of Megillat Esther. If until now we paid attention much more to the plot, whether it was, if you remember, seeing not only historical development but allusions between the story of Esther and the stories of Binyamin, Yehuda, the Benjaminite kingship, together with the kingship of Yehuda, David and Shaul, Yehuda who risked his life for Binyamin, Binyamin who then risked his life in the story of Esther for this time the Yehudim of Malchut Achashverosh. So too, divulging various messages as well within the basic order, the chiasm within Megillat Esther, the structure and the motif of the feasts. And now we're going to pay attention to more the development of the holiday and some of the expressions of the development, because we could truly explore and re-explore the narrative of Megillat Esther. And I would like to even share with you that even in the preparation of this shiurim, already new ideas coming to mind. So I guess we'll have to repeat the series next year, Tamar. But basically what we find is that hafoch ba v'hafoch ba d'kula ba. Really so many different nuances. And the questions are obviously going to be, what are the authors alluding to, whether it's in literary allusions, whether it's through the structure. But now our question is going to be, how and why did they also create the holiday? In other words, we find various works that are read on respective chagim, whether it's Shir HaShirim, that's going to be read on Pesach, Ruth on Shavuot, but within that sefer, we don't necessarily have any correlation with that particular holiday. Yonah doesn't actually mention Yom HaKippurim, and we know Echa doesn't actually talk about the date of destruction. It's actually about the aftermath of destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash. And similarly, when it comes to, again, the works of narrative of Ruth, and no direct connection between Ruth and Shavuot, so much so that we have to try sometimes to find the connections that are there. But Megillat Esther, as we discussed in our very introduction, being the one sefer that's written a priori as a Megillah to be read out loud in a public forum for that time period, and then Chazal and Mesecha Megillah Daf Zayin teaching us that Esther, in an anachronistic manner, writes and pleads to Anshe Knesset Hagdolah, Kitvuni Lidorot, I'm telling you, this work, you should really canonize it for generations to come. You should make sure that it's established as a religious work that is going to be perpetuated throughout the generations. And we know that they really don't want to because of all other messages, the very fact that it takes place in Chutz La'aretz, no mention of the name of God. Here you have a Jewish woman assimilating, intermarrying with the king Achashverosh. What messages are we trying to give our young Jewish girls? And therefore, they're very hesitant until Esther insists, which basically teaches us two very important messages. Number one, that if a woman pushes hard enough, she always gets her way. Secondly, that there obviously are messages within the story. And juxtaposed to this plea of Esther, she writes not just kitvuni lidorot, but kivuni lidorot. They go hand in hand. Not just establishing the Megillah, but if you establish the Megillah, then that means that you also establish the holiday. Because let's take a look at the last few chapters of Megillat Esther, where in fact we find the establishment of the holiday known as Purim. And we'll see that it doesn't necessarily express exactly the way that we relate or the way that we celebrate Purim today, but this is going to serve as the basis for the Tanaitic institution of the rabbinic holiday that we do know today as Purim. So let's get started in Megillat Esther Perek Tet. And what we're going to do this time is really try to dissect the Perek, try to understand the stages of the development of the holiday step by step, because generally what are we feeling by Esther Perek Tet? Well, the exciting part of the Megillah is finished, right? We won the war already. And Mordecai and Esther are the heroes and the heroine, respectively. And we more or less already know about the salvation of the Jewish people. So it really could end, as we know, and in the middle of Perek Tet. Everything thereafter seems a little more technical. And for those who remember the shiur last year, actually quite disappointing because we were hoping for a mass aliyah thereafter. And unfortunately, we see that they're staying in Chutz La'aretz, V'dover Shalom L'chol Zaro. As wonderful as we discussed 2 weeks ago, that there's going to be unity amongst the Jewish people, or at least that Mordecai, even though he's from Binyamin, is going to get along with Yehuda. Nonetheless, they are still in Chutz La'aretz. In addition, here, perhaps in Yerushalayim, again, you're not feeling this, but everywhere outside of Yerushalayim, what are we feeling by the time we get to Perek Tet? We're starving. And we just want to break our fast already. And when we hear even about the fast, but we also hear about the future feasts, we're even hungrier. And we're just thinking, please, Bal Kriya of Megillat Esther, just finish off. Perek Tet and Perek Yud is very simple, with only but 3 psukim. So we really rush through, even psychologically, this chapter. So tonight, I hope everyone has had a delicious dinner, because now we're going to try to explore this chapter very much in depth. And as I warned some people in the elevator going up, this is also going to be an opportunity to shed new light on not only Purim, but how Mordecai and Esther are trying to, in fact, perpetuate this holiday based on what they endured. So we're going to look at the entire story anew. But let's get started. Vayikalu haYehudim asher b'Shushan, gam b'yom 14 l'chodesh Adar, vayargu b'Shushan 300 ish, so I'm just going to give a short introduction to this, just to remind you that Esther had been told by Achashverosh that she can't necessarily undermine or, again, completely eradicate the first set of letters that had told the various citizens of Persia that they're allowed to strike the Jews, kill them, and take their money, a percentage of which is going to enter the treasury of Achashverosh, but the rest basically, like Kristallnacht, you can keep, and none of the authorities are going to say that this is unlawful. Esther wasn't able to truly, again, completely undermine these letters. Rather, what does Achashverosh tell her she can do? Keeping in mind that this was all for his economic state. Of course, we don't want to somehow raise the deficit. Instead, Esther says, how about this? And we're going to write it in such a way that now that the Jews are more or less respected, Mordecai was taken by Haman throughout the streets of Shushan on the king's horse with the king's clothing. Not only are the people more afraid of the Jews, but if someone wants to kill a Jew may now stand up, defend oneself, and even kill the Persian, and do what with the Persian's money? Also give that to the king. And they could also technically take some if they'd like, but really it's for the king's deficit, as we said. It's to help solve all of his economic problems, which now helps us understand why he did not allow for the cancellation of the original letters. So they go out to kill. This being kept in mind, one day of massacres for the sake of taking the money of the victims and putting it in the king's treasury. So from the king's perspective, what is he anticipating should happen on this day of massacre? A lot of people should be killed, right? And he's hoping, right? He's waiting for, yes, kill as many people. Again, Jews, come on, you can do it. Defend yourself. Or Persians, just kill the Jews. It doesn't make such a difference anymore. If you remember, 2 psukim earlier, we hear that in Shushan, on this day, meaning on the day of the battles, Yud Gimel, they managed to kill, anyone remember how many? 500 people. Is that a lot? The king is very disappointed. How do you know? Because Esther appears before him and he says, what would you like? And basically, she hasn't asked for anything. He calls her and says, come on, ma shelatech, ma bakashatech. And she realizes, what does he want? He needs more money. So what does she say? Okay, can we have another day to fight? Yes, of course you can have another day to fight. And also make sure that Haman's sons are all going to be hanging on the tree. Then comes the continuation. The Jews in Shushan, therefore, not only fought on the day that was scheduled for the massacre on the 13th, but also on the 14th. And they kill another 300 people. What do you think is Achashverosh's response to this? But we hear, Oba biza lo shachu et yadam. What's special about the Jews? When they kill only in self-defense, because they can only kill when a Persian comes to attack them. So when they kill defensively, and they technically have a right to some of the spoils, some of the property, what do we find out about? Babiza lo shachu et yadam. Another tikkun, as we discussed, for Shaul HaMelech, for his army, not killing and Amalek and taking the flock for themselves. Here they don't take anything. Everything is going to enter the king's treasury. Ushar HaYehudim, but remember everyone else not living in Shushan, they only had one day of fighting. Asher b'medinot HaMelech nikalu v'amod al nafsham v'noach ma'oivehem v'arog v'sonehem 75,000 in 127 provinces, 75,000 people are going to be killed. Not bad. Ubabiza lo shalchu et yadam. And once again, where did the money of all the victims go? To the king. Biyom 13 לחודש אדר ונוח ב14 בו ועשה אותו יום משתה ושמחה. Now we're going to pay attention clearly to each one of the words. So because they fought all day, again in defense, on the 13th of Adar, what did they do? On the 14th, you can imagine their sense of relief, but not only relief, we survived. We finally, again, that day of massacre is over. They now are going to be able to have a Yom Mishte V'Simcha. Mishte, we discussed last week, that appears no less than 10 times. That's the motif. They're going to go out and they're going to have a couple of drinks. But this is a little different because when Jews celebrate, it's not just Mishte, it's Mishte V'Simcha. We're drinking accompanied by a sense of genuine happiness. It's not an escape from our troubles. It's together with the happiness that we feel. Vayudim asher b'Shushan. Once the Jews in Shushan saw what the surrounding people did, as we hear all the other people, then the Jews in Shushan as well, after their 2 days of massacre, they were able then, v'noach b'chamisha sarbo v'asa oto yom mishte v'simcha. They then feasted and enjoyed on the 15th of Adar. So that's what we would call the spontaneous celebrations of the year of the actual victory. Pasuk Yutet. Al Kain, meaning sometime thereafter, the next year, maybe a few years thereafter, HaYehudim HaPrazim HaYoshvim Ba'arei HaPrazot. Now we're going to see something very interesting. Therefore, the Jews who were prazim, what does prazim literally mean? Like pruzim, that were spread about, that live in the arei prazot, which means spread about cities. Well, that's very strange, because we're going to see that the way that we've always learned this is that this is a reference to the cities that are spread about beyond Shushan. That's exactly it, but that's a strange way to say it, because until now, how did we refer to them? The Yehudim in Shushan, Ushar HaYehudim asher b'medinot HaMelech. All you have to say is the Jews, everybody else, everyone outside of Shushan. So why not be consistent here? Pasuk Yotet, Al Kain HaYehudim asher b'medinot HaMelech. Again, that's a reference to everywhere else other than Shushan. All of a sudden we find this new terminology. We're not sure what this is. All the villages, the village people, the people spread about, but that doesn't make sense because Arei HaPrazot, apparently they're living in cities, but the cities are spread about, so they're distributed evenly, non-evenly, and are these, I don't know, Arei Miklat, what type of cities? So much so that this is exactly how Masechah Megillah begins. What are Arei Prazot? Osim Yom 14 l'chodesh Adar, Simcha u'mishteh v'Yom Tov. They decide to actually establish their spontaneous celebration as an established holiday for years to come. And they change the nature around a little bit from that spontaneous celebration. Namely, they're going to celebrate every year on the 14th. Obviously, why? Because that's when they initially celebrated, because they had fought on the 1 day of massacre on the 13th. And therefore, they're going to continue to celebrate on the 14th. And what will they do? Simcha u'mishteh. It won't just be drinking and happiness. What are we going to put first? Simcha u'mishteh. We don't drink in order to be happy. Now we're happy, and the expression thereof is going to be to drink. Simcha umishte v'yom tov. We know, what is this terminology, Yom Tov? Definitely during the time of Mordecai and Esther, and this is another discussion in the Mishnah and the Gemara. Is a Yom Tov a good day? Does that mean just a day of festivities? But that would be redundant with Mishta v'Simcha. Or is it a day of Isur Malacha, a prohibition from performing your daily activities, from work? And in fact, we find this machloket. Maybe they decided to establish it as a day off, as a day of Isur Malacha. And they also add something else. Umishloach manot ish l'reyehu. And we're a little surprised. I understand continuing the spirit, the zeitgeist of drinking and simcha. I even understand Yom Tov, that in order to enable people to truly celebrate, you have to give them that day off. Make it a day with a prohibition of work. What's mishloach manot ish l'reyehu? So we already know from halacha, we know from the way that we celebrate Purim, that what does this mean? Send food packages from one person to the other. And based on this, how many people do you have to send to? Ish l're'ehu. 2 manot to one person. Why would they establish this? Meaning that's what we do because that's what was established. But why will it help even? What's the goal of sending 2 foods to one person? And that's a strange kind of added component to a holiday of celebration. But we'll see. Pasuk Chaf. That was stage number 1. Stage number 1, the Yehudim Prazim decide that they're going to establish a holiday of Simcha and Mishta and Yom Tov and Mishloach Manot on the 14th of Adar. Pasuk Chaf, Vayechtov Mordecai et hadvarim ha'ele, Vayishlach Sfarim, El kol haYehudim asher b'chol medinot hamelech Achashverosh, hakrovim harachokim. Now we're a little more confused. Mordecai, who clearly isn't in the Arei Prazot because he's in Shushan. As a matter of fact, now he has an official governmental position. He's in charge of Beit Haman. And now that he is working for the royalty, he is certainly centered in Shushan, where the Nace really started together with he and Esther, and where the battles continued for 2 days. So he clearly wasn't celebrating the 14th, because he now is going to write a letter to Kol HaYudim Asher B'chol Medinot HaMelech, which is strange, because if the reference is all the places beyond Shushan, then, and it should have said, and well, if that was what Arei Prazot meant, then just say Arei Prazot. No, he's sending to all 127 provinces, Hakrovim v'Harachokim. Well, obviously, if they're all the Medinot HaMelech, some are closer, some are farther. So what is he trying to teach us here? And what does he do? He is going to revise the established holiday. What does he suggest? Pasuk Chaf Aleph, Lekayem Alehem. I know you already have a holiday, that's very nice. Let's tweak it a little. Let's establish upon what you already established. Liot osim et yom 14 l'chodesh Adar ve'et yom 15 bo. Don't just celebrate on the 14th, because that's not really fair. Fair to whom? To the people of Shushan. Because you're only commemorating how you celebrated. What should you do? Also commemorate how we celebrated. Now this is a little strange. If the people of Shushan are so upset that they're not celebrating on the 15th, what should the people of Shushan do? They should establish Shushan Purim. Sound familiar? They should have their own Purim on the 15th. And yet Mordecai is insistent that what does everyone do? Everyone has to celebrate on the 14th and the 15th. You have to celebrate on both. Vet Yom 15 bo b'chol shana v'shana. Kayamim asher nachu bahem haYehudim me'oivehem. Do you remember all the Jews celebrated? We all rested. Don't forget about us in Shushan, which is a little strange, that the primary city of the victory of where it all began should be omitted from the celebrations. They should be left out. And what else does Mordecai add? So it's going to be a 2-day holiday, a perfect Chutz La'aretz holiday, Yom Tov Sheni Shel Galiot. Just add another day. V'achodesh asher ne'apach lehem me'agon l'simcha. And the pshat seems to be, celebrate the whole month actually. Really, Mordecai, that's a lot. It seems that really, what is he alluding to? Don't just celebrate on the 14th, celebrate on the 15th. Why? Because the 15th represents the Chodesh. What's so great about the 15th? You don't want to celebrate with us, with the people of Shushan. You see us as somehow irrelevant to the celebrations of Purim. Instead of saying, and we're really the ones who started this, what does he say? Why should you celebrate on the 15th? Because the 15th is really the essence of a month. How do we know that? Every other holiday. We have Sukkot on the 15th of Tishrei. We have Rosh Hashanah Li'ilanot on the 15th of Shvat. We have Pesach on the 15th of Nisan. So I know you like the 14th, but really the 15th is very good because it's the Chodesh. It's the time of the full moon. Asher napach lehem mi'agon l'samcha me'ever liyom tov. But interestingly, he doesn't tell them because we're Shushan. Why not? And what else does he add? Not only another day, me'ever liyom tov lasot otam yemei mishta v'simcha u'mishloach manot ish l'reyehu. He likes that very much. And he adds, u'matanot le'evyonim. But this is also strange, because if I'm already giving food items to someone, then just give the food item to a poor person. Why does he add umatanot, which means 2 items? And it seems that he's not referring to food items anymore, because he doesn't say manot, he says matanot. Even though Chazal teach manot, matanot, how much of a gift do you have to give to 2 evyonim? Again, the plural over here. You have to give enough for each of them for a mana, right? Basically, for a meal. So just say, manot levyonim. No. Mishloach manot matanot levyonim. So that was Mordecai's addendum. Stage 3. Let's see what the Jews accepted in the end. V'kibel haYehudim et asher hechelu la'asot. They said, we like our way of doing things, namely on the 14th. But okay, Mordecai, you convinced us. Ve'et asher katav Mordecai alehem. What does that mean? What did they do? They accepted a 2-day holiday. Is that what we do today? No, but why not? 2 days off, better than 14 days of quarantine, that's for sure. And 2 days of Yudalit Tetvav, together with what they had done, Simcha Mishte Yom Tov, Mishloach Manot, and what Mordecai added. What else did he add? Matanot Levyonim. Why? Ki Haman ben Hamdatah Hagagit, Sorer Kol HaYudim, Chashav al HaYudim la'abdam. We had to celebrate these 2 days because Haman wanted to eradicate the Jewish people. V'hi pilpur hu agoral, and there was a lottery, Lehumam ula'abdam, to truly annihilate them. Ubevo alef nehamelech, and as she came before the king, who's the she? Esther. Why not just give her some credit? Just say, Ubevo'at Esther Hamaka. No, and she came. Oh, you all know who that is. Together with the letters that went out. Again, this way we were able to truly completely reverse what Haman wanted. He wanted genocide of the Jewish people. Instead, talu oto vet panav al ha'etz. Instead, Haman and his children were hung on the tree. Al-Kain, because of the initial because of the initial threat of genocide, we're going to call the days Purim. Because now how many days do we have? 1 day of remembering the poor, now another day of remembering the poor. Al-Shem HaPur. So really they shouldn't call it Purim, they should call it Mishtaot or Yemei HaPur. But no, Pur and Pur, Al-Kain, Al-Kol Devrei HaYigeret Azot, Umara U'al-Kacha, Uma Higia Alehem. And this way you'll remember the danger and what could have and should have happened, which was complete destruction of the Jews of Shushan and the provinces of the king. Pasuk of Zayin. Kimu v'kiblu hayudim alehem v'al zaram v'al kol ha'nilvim alehem. All the Jews then accepted for themselves, this is how we'll keep it. We'll keep it as a 2-day holiday. V'lo yavor liot osim et shnei hayamim ha'ele kichtavam ukizmanam. We will make sure to properly observe this as is written at its time. What time? The 14th and the 15th. B'chol shana v'shana. Vayamim ha'ele. But over time, what happened? These days became nizkarim. Yes, they were remembered. V'na'asim b'chol dor vador. In other words, was everyone really observing these days? Some people, yes, and some people forgot about it. Some people started wearing kachol v'lavan, and instead of a barbecue, they said, oh, we'll just have blue and white cupcakes. Again, some people said, okay, we'll have a little bit of a drink, and then we'll get on with our everyday business. Mishpacha, mishpacha, medina, medina, va'ir, va'ir. V'imei ha'purim ha'ele lo yavru mitoch ha'Yehudim, v'zichram lo yasuf mizaram. It seems that people remember them, but the emphasis is more on the remembrance as opposed to the actual celebration, the fulfillment, which leads us now to stage 4. Stage 4, Vatichtov Esther Hamalka Bat Avichayil. Now Esther gets involved. She wasn't involved in the first 3 stages. Who was involved? Just Mordecai. Esther Hamalka gets involved. Now this is going to demand royal intervention. Esther is going to write with the royal seal, O Mordecai HaYehudi. And Mordecai is going to pronounce himself as a Yehudi. I am writing this as the Jewish ambassador to the UN. I am writing this as the Jewish representative at Kol Tokef, with all of its strength, giving us a sense that they're disappointed with the status quo. Lekayem et Igeret HaPurim Hazot Hashenit. They put out a second edition of Megillat Esther, and they accompanied it with the edict. Make sure you now actually fulfill these days of Purim. Here's the strangest part. Divrei Shalom ve'emet. They wrote words of peace and truth. Now, what does that mean? They wrote words of peace and truth. After all, this seems to be somewhat of an oxymoron, considering that what was the tone of their letter? Kol tokef. They're writing in a very adamant manner. They're writing perhaps even somewhat of a belligerent manner. Tokef, with strength. Now it says that they wrote words of peace and truth. What are words of peace and truth? Everyone has to keep these 2 days like Mordecai and Esther are still doing. That we all agreed that we were going to perpetuate for generations to come. And they also spoke about the fast days and their cries. So Rashi says clearly, what fast days did they write about? Esther's 3 days of fasting. Okay, but what does it mean that they wrote that they should fulfill these days, the days of celebration and the days of fasting? Ibn Ezra says they didn't institute Esther's 3 days of fasting, Baruch Hashem. Rather, what was instituted? Tanit Esther. Why then call it Divrei HaTzomot? They wanted them to keep the Tzomot v'zakatam, the fast, and if it's the fast of Esther, then why is it in the plural? Umamar Esther kiyam Divrei HaPurim ha'ele v'nechtav b'sefer. This is going to be the grasping point for Chazal to extrapolate that it was really Esther who is going to encourage Anshe Knesset Hagdolah to ensure not only the establishment of her holiday, but also v'nechtav b'sefer, the canonization of this sefer of Megillat Esther as one of the 24 holy scriptures of Tanakh. Let's try to understand then what the authors are telling us. If we turn the page to page 2, we see the nice summary now of the 4 stages of the acceptance of the holiday as far as we know it. Stage number 1, the Jews of these villages who dwelled in unwalled towns, again, very strange terms, made the 14th of Adar. Then Mordecai wrote down the words and said, no, it should really be the 14th and the 15th. And again, make sure that Then Mordecai wrote down these things, sent them again, and said not just the 14th and the 15th, and not just your sending of the portions, also Matanot Levionim. The Jews then agreed. They started doing what they did. They added Mordecai's in order to remember the poor. And then we had stage 4, Queen Esther, writing letters to everyone, insisting that they truly observe this 2-day holiday together with the Sefer and together with fast days that we're not really sure what this is. So much so, if we compare the first letters that were described in verses 20 to 28, when they explained how they're establishing this as a holiday, how it's going to be a holiday that is going to enable them to remember the death threats that they were under, and Haman who wanted to annihilate them, and this woman who came before the king. Note that we found the first letters involved just Mordecai. We hear that they were sent to all the Jews who were in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus near and far. Stage number 3, to establish for them the 14th and the 15th. And then we hear that the Jews undertook to accept all this. The second letters don't just involve Mordecai, but turning to the top of page 3, we see the development. They involve Mordecai and Esther with her royal seal. Emphasis to confirm that this is a second letter, that something was going awry beforehand. So 2 letters to all the Jews, 127 provinces, but this time what's added? Kol tokef, all the strength. And then, in a strange manner, also words of peace and truth were added to these letters. Don't know what that is. To confirm that these days be celebrated at their time. Again, it repeats, Mordechai HaYehudi, Esther HaMalka, that they had established for them. And then we hear that it ends with Esther's word. And this is significant. Why does it end with Esther's word? Basically, what are they teaching? All the members of the 127 provinces, just know that this has royal ramifications. This isn't just now a holiday to remember the Jewish people. It's not just a national religious holiday, it's a national monarchical holiday. Queen Esther is behind this. And if you do not celebrate Purim, if you keep your stores open on election day, again, if you do not celebrate this, then it's Esther's word. Esther made sure that this would be established. And they're going to write the letters insisting, as you see 3 times over, that we know that Mordecai and Esther were involved, versus the previous letters wherein Esther's name wasn't even mentioned. It was only alluded to. Oh, and she came before the king and basically convinced him to allow the Jews with letters to defend themselves. So let's try to understand the various stages. We're actually going to begin by appreciating not so much stage number 1. I understand why we're going to celebrate the 14th and why they should be days of Mishteh v'Simcha. What I don't understand is why they should also be days of Mishloach Manot. One could argue that what is the reason to, as part of a celebration, to send food items one to the other? Well, we know from the Torah, let's look at Dvarim Perek Gimel. We know that, before we get to this, we know that in Dvarim Perek Tzed Zayin, 2 sources down, we know that when people celebrate holidays, whether it's Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, we're commanded by the Torah to make sure that the ger, yatom, almana also join us, that those who don't necessarily have the means to afford to purchase food items with which to celebrate, especially the wine, that we make sure that they're going to join in our celebrations. We find that Maser Sheni, that years 1 and 2 and 4 and 5 of a 7-year Shemitah cycle are also going to make sure that we invite those that can't afford their own barbecue dinners. We invite them to Yerushalayim. We invite them to Joy Grill to be able to participate in the eating together with us. So one could argue that why do they establish Mishlochei Manot? Because that's part of the celebration. Once it's going to be an established holiday with simcha u'mishteh, that doesn't mean anymore just wine. What else are you going to need to feel happy? Some basar, definitely food items. So on the most basic level, one can argue that. As a matter of fact, one could also argue, based on Sefer Nehemiah, wherein we find that Nehemiah is living during the same time period as Megillat Esther, the building of Bayit Sheni, that Ezra and Nehemiah in Perek Chet organized the Jews, the 42,360 that have returned. They see that unfortunately they're not really worshiping Hashem properly in the Beit HaMikdash. They're not even properly observing the laws. Not only the laws, the mitzvot hatzliyot ba'aretz, it's almost as if they forgot their national holidays. So they organize all of them on Rosh Hashanah to come to the Sha'ar Hamayim, and Ezra stands on a podium and he begins to read the words of the Torah, basically the words of Sefer Dvarim, the covenant of Eretz Yisrael and Torat Yisrael. And the people hear about their holidays, and the people hear that they haven't really been fulfilling the words of the Torah. And when they hear the words of the Torah, they start to cry. And Nehemiah and Ezra tell them, they say, Al titablu v'al tivku. This is not the time to mourn and cry. Ki bochim kol ha'am ki shamam et divrei haTorah. Because they realize how they've neglected the words of the Torah. Vayomar lahem, Lechu echlu mashmanim ushtu mamtakim v'shulchu manot le'ein nachon lo. What should you go home and do? You should celebrate Rosh Hashanah. Ki kadosh hayom ladonenu v'al tatzevu ki chedvat Hashem hi ma'uschem. Today's the day that you're supposed to be happy. This is the primary source in Tanakh, teaching us that, of course, Rosh Hashanah, albeit a Yom Hadin, of course has to be a day of Simcha. And even though Gaonim fasted, the Rishonim teach us, no, you're not supposed to fast on Rosh Hashanah. You have to be happy. See Sefer Nehemiah Perek Chet. And what was Nehemiah's edict to them? Go home, l'chu echlu mashmanim, eat, literally it means fattening foods, ushtu mamtakim, eat delicacies, drink delicious beverages, v'shulchu manot le'ein nachon lo, having nothing to do with Purim. What's the point of shulchu manot? Basically, provide for others. This is how every holiday apparently was celebrated. Dashcham, celebrate by having a potluck meal. In other words, you make the Yerushalmi kugel, they'll make the potato kugel, and enjoy together. V'shulchu manot. Now, why should one not just provide for others, but even make sure that you eat together? So this can certainly enhance the camaraderie. This can certainly bring the communities together. We already know that what was Haman's primary argument before Achashverosh? Why should these, he doesn't even mention the name Jew. Why should these people be annihilated? Because they're an am achad mefuzar umfurad bein ha'amim. They're so scattered. They're living throughout the diaspora. And they are all over. Ve'et datei hamelech einam osim. And they have a different dat, but they don't even really follow it. So no one's going to notice that they're gone. So they're the perfect people to annihilate, to take their money for the government. And we know that Achashverosh, without even knowing that they're Jews, for all he cares, they could be gypsy people. How are we going to solve the problem? Mishloach manot. We're going to make sure that we join, that we unify together. That seems to be the basic idea of Mishlochei Manot. But if we appreciate it in the context of this very strange development of the holiday, of the two separate letters that go out, then maybe we can understand this all the more. Because in fact, where did the Jews start to celebrate Purim? Where did they start to celebrate it? As a one-day holiday of Simcha Mishte, Yom Tov, Mishloach Manot. Where did they start? By celebrating only on the 14th, because they fought on the 13th. Ba'arei HaPrazot. Let's look and try to figure out, what are these Arei Prazot? We already established that they're not simply villages because they're Arei Prazot. And they're not necessarily the Jews living outside of Shushan because they were already referred to as the Medinot of the Melech, everywhere but Shushan. So if we look at Dvarim Perek Gimel, we know exactly what Arei HaPrazot are. Moshe Rabbeinu, upon Am Yisrael's imminent entrance to Eretz Yisrael, encouraging them about their future conquests that they're going to have, explains, Vanilkod et kol harav be'itahi. He reminds them that they can do this, that they can go in and they can destroy the cities of the Canaanim. He says, because we've already fought against these cities. We fought against the cities of Sichon and Og. Lo hayta kiryah asher lo lakachnu mi'itam. Shishim ir. we were able to take over literally 60 cities in the areas of Chevel Argov, Mamlechet Og Habashan. Kol ele arim bitzurot. We were able to triumph over fortified cities. Choma gvoha, dlatayim uvriach. Those were extremely fortified, with high walls and gates and bars. Levad ma'arei haprazi. Other than the walls or the cities without walls. And what is Moshe Rabbeinu referring to? It's going to be so easy for you to come to Eretz Yisrael, because also by the Meraglim he says, go and see whether these are arei prazot, whether yesh choma im ayin. In other words, in what context are arei prazot always mentioned? In the context of the conquest of cities in Eretz Yisrael. So what happens? The Jews and the lands of Israel were the ones who started the establishment of the national holiday of Purim. The Yehudim, who are living, where are they? They're prazim. Why are they prazim? They're the scattered ones, because there are only 42,360 of them. They're the minority versus the concentrated Jews in the diaspora. And they're living in the Arei HaPrazot, meaning in the cities that have already been conquered in the lands of Israel. The Jews there say, this was actually a national victory for all the Jews in all 127 provinces, including the lands of Israel. But all holidays have to be established where? By the Sanhedrin in the lands of Israel. So we're going to establish it as a day of celebration for generations to come. And therefore, what are we going to do? We're going to establish it, obviously, as a one-day holiday, because we can't tolerate in Eretz Yisrael a Yom Tov Sheni Shagaliot. We're going to establish it as the 14th. And obviously, why the 14th? Because in Eretz Yisrael, when do they have to defend themselves? On the 13th, so they were able to rest and celebrate on the 14th. Not that there were really many Persians who actually dared to fight against the Jewish population in the lands of Judea. They're the ones who are going to establish it. Now we understand this a little more. After they establish it, what does Mordecai do? Mordecai says, wait a second, I understand. I'm not contesting you. It's true that you're the Jews who live in Eretz Yisrael, you're the Sanhedrin, you get to decide how to create a holiday, but you left out a very important component, namely us, the Jews in Shushan. Do you remember we're really the reason why the victory happened? Together with Esther Ubevoah. Now, why doesn't he mention Esther's name? Because they don't want to give credence to Shushan, because holidays are enacted in the lands of Israel. This is so nice because I'm preaching to the choir. And Mordecai says, I know. So, but she came before the king, do you remember? And the whole problem with Haman, it's a Shushan problem. So I really think you should celebrate on the 15th. And I'm not even going to tell you to celebrate on the 15th because that's when we rested. But it's a great day because it's the middle of the month. So we should celebrate with Mishloach Manot. I like that idea. That is so nice. As a matter of fact, I think that we should even have more Shalom and Re'ut. I think we should really join together as a community and also have Matanot Levyonim. So they agree. They say, okay, we'll establish this as a Shushan plus holiday. Again, now we're going to make it very clear that, yes, this is the holiday so that we can remember Shushan. But then what happens? What do you think happens over time? As we said in Eretz Yisrael, hard to have a 2-day holiday. What was going on over time? They forgot about which? The Shushan holiday. What did Mordecai and Esther do? They wrote Kol Tokef. But they wrote Divrei Shalom ve'emet. What are Divrei Shalom ve'emet? If you know Tanakh, know better than this. If you know the time period in which they're living, then that's like using a key phrase today. That's like saying, elections. And that's like saying, again, coronavirus today, and everyone is now in a state of upheaval. In 10 years from now, and if we say it, what will happen? Nothing. That's like saying the flu today. The general flu, influenza, doesn't scare anyone like it scared the Spanish. And why not? Because we have a vaccine. So we're really okay. But you have to put it back in context. And I'm sure you've all seen the little post. Again, someone walks in, a few people walk into a bank with a mask, and they say, no, we're here for the robbery, and everyone comes down. So again, now we have a sense of divrei shalom ve'emet. If you want to understand these words in truth, you have to go back to that time period. This is a time period of Rabbanit Shani. Everyone knows this very famous speech known as divrei shalom ve'emet. A little bit of the background to the speech. The bottom of page 3, Zachariah Perek Zayin. Vayhi b'shnat arba l'Daryavish HaMelech. And as we've established in Persian history, Achashverosh succeeds this Daryavish. So prior to the story of Megillat Esther, this story has already happened. It was the 4th year of Daryavish. Darius had allowed in his 2nd year for the Judeans to begin the rebuilding of the temple. And we know that it took them 4 years to rebuild the temple, so that by 516 BCE, the temple is inaugurated. That means that in the 4th year of Darius, meaning the 2nd year of the temple, we'll call it the construction project, what do you think is the state of the Beit HaMikdash? It's not fully built, but it's halfway done, whatever that means. There's a shell. They see that it's going up. And who comes to Zachariah, the Gadol Hador, the Navi during that time? Barba'a l'chodesh haTshi'i b'Kislev. They come in Kislev. Why would people come to the Beit HaMikdash in Kislev? To daven for rain. Vayishlach Beit El Saratzer v'Regem Melech v'Anashav lechalot et pnei Hashem. These sound like Persian names. Yes, they are. Beit El Saratzer, Regem Melech. We have 3 Jews, but they're assimilated. They have Persian names. They're coming to pray in this pseudo-temple. Leimor el ha-kohanim asher lebeit Hashem tzvaot vel ha-neviim leimor. And then they ask the Kohanim and the Nevi'im, and we said the primary Navi, Zachariah, Hevke b'chodesh ha-chamishi, now that the Beit HaMikdash is under construction, should we still fast in the 5th month, namely on Tisha B'Av? Hi nazer kasher asiti ze kama shanim. Should we still separate ourselves from food and drink as we've been doing since the destruction? And Zechariah answers them in the name of God. First, he says, you asked the question incorrectly. You should not have just asked about fasting on Tisha B'Av. Ki tzamtem v'safod b'chamishi u'bashvi'i. You should have also asked about fasting in the 7th month. What's the 7th month? Tishrei. What does that mean? They should have asked about Yom Kippur. No, he doesn't mean Yom Kippur. He means Tzom Gedalia. You coming from Chutz La'aretz, all you can think about is the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. Do you know that you're also responsible for Tzom Gedalia? Because you remember why we fast on Tzom Gedalia? Not just because Gedalia was assassinated, but because Gedalia was assassinated, the last of the remnants of the Jewish people were afraid of the vengeance of the Babylonians, and they didn't listen to Yirmiyahu, who said, just stay put and build up a society in the land of Israel to make it easier for people to return. Instead, what did the last vestiges of the Shuv in Eretz Yisrael, of settlement of Jews in Israel, what did they do? They ran to Mitzrayim. They ran away to Chutz La'aretz. He says, you from Chutz La'aretz, you should be asking about Tzom Gedalia. That is just as bad as Tisha B'Av in your eyes. And the truth is, he says, that it's not about the fast. Hatzom tzamatuni ani. Do you think God's been fasting for 70 years? Is it about now that the Beit HaMikdash is up, now we don't have to fast and we have nothing to worry about? Hashem says, tell them what to do. Tell them that if they want this Beit HaMikdash to last, then what should they do? Then they should learn from the mistakes of the past. And they should build a better society for the future. It's not about the Mikdash. It's not, okay, now we have a Mikdash, everything is fine. Rather, work on the following. Mishpat emet, pasuk chet, shivtu. Make sure that you judge ben adam lachavero according to truth. V'chesed v'rachamim asu ish et achiv, and deal kindly one with the other. V'almana v'yatom v'ger v'ani al tashoku v'ra'at ish achiv al tachshavu b'vavchem. Stop thinking badly one of the other. Stop slandering one another in your campaigns. Stop speaking harshly, because your parents, unfortunately, did not listen to this, and that's why I had to destroy them. It wasn't just about Ben Adam Lamakom. It's about Ben Adam Lachavero. Let's turn the page. He continues. And he says, that's why Hashem has now said, Kineti Litzion kin agdola. Don't worry, I've already punished you, Shalayim, and I'm ready to rebuild it. And my husband knows I'm a little bit Mikdash obsessed. I'm very excited about the rebuilding of the Beit HaMikdash because I think we're closer than we ever were before in Jewish history. So I've already started creating crash courses on Hilchot Tumah and Tahara. I'm very serious, very nice charts, so that when Be'ezrat Hashem, and we're able to build the Beit HaMikdash, we can all have this up and running and be fine. My husband sometimes turns to me and he says, Shani, that's so nice and beautiful. But we have a lot to do before crash courses on Tumah and Tahara. And he's right. Because Zechariah says, before anything, before worrying even about whether or not this Beit HaMikdash is going to last, are you a viable society? Are you working on Ben Adam L'Chavero? Can you finally get a government together? This is Zechariah, Pasuk Zayin. Heneni Moshiach Ami Me'eretz Mizrach. I'm going to bring, now's the opportunity. You're going to see that now that there is a viable community in the land of Israel that knows how to get along, a unified, identified Jewish people, now I'm going to bring all the people from the Mizrach. That's Bavel. I'm going to bring the people from Shushan. I'm going to bring everyone here. We're finally going to have a righteous government. On the day that the establishment of the Beit HaMikdash, literally the founding of the Beit HaMikdash, it's already getting started. So this is what I'm asking you to do. Pasuk Yudalid. Kasher zamamti lahara lachem b'haksef avotecha moti, as angry as I was, and how I destroyed the Beit HaMikdash, that's how now I'm so excited to rebuild this and to rebuild you as a people you have nothing to worry about. But you have to do something. Pasuk Tetzayin. Ela hadvarim asher tasu. Dabru emet ish et reyehu. Speak words of truth one to the other. Emet umishpat ushalom shiftu b'sharichem. Please, please get your act together. Please speak properly one to the other. Pursue truth and justice and peace and judge accordingly. Finally, rid yourselves of the corruption of the Batei Mishpat. Try not even to think badly of the other person. Ushvuat sheker, and definitely don't swear falsely against one another, because I despise all this as God. And you want to know what? If you're able to build a society of emet and shalom, then not only will this Beit HaMikdash last, not only will you not have to fast on Tisha B'Av, but Tzom HaRevi'i, the fast of Tammuz, Shavasar B'Tammuz, and Tzom HaChamishi, and Tisha B'Av, and Tzom HaShvi'i, Tzom Gedalia, and Tzom HaSiri, Asara B'Tevet, Yel Beit Yehuda, L'Sasson, U'L'Simcha, U'L'Moadim Tovim. These fast days are going to be transformed into national holidays. But just remember, V'amet V'Shalom Ahavu, on the condition that you espouse and adopt these values of peace and truth. Now we understand this all the more. Mordecai and Esther write to the Jews in Eretz Yisrael, please, please, please accept a 2-day holiday. Don't forget us Jews in Chutz La'aretz, particularly in Shushan. Why? Divrei Shalom ve'emet. Because we're also trying to build that society. Because remember, Zechariah, we all have to get along. Don't dismiss us. Remember what Hashem said. He's going to bring us back. We're working on it. We're trying to get the Jews from Chutz La'aretz to come to Eretz Yisrael. But in the meantime, Divrei Shalom ve'emet. Please remember words of peace and truth. We're not doing this to disenfranchise ourselves from you. We see Yerushalayim as the center of our culture. But Divrei Shalom ve'emet, we're asking you to please include us within your community. We're asking you to please help us all get along. And therefore, We're asking also, Esther, the Malka, Mordecai HaYehudi. I'm really from Shevet Binyamin, but I'm associated with you. And therefore, what did they say? Divrei Hatzamot. We want to establish this just like the fast days were established. But they're also saying, just like the fast days, Ibn Ezra explains, what does this mean? Not only are they saying, can you please establish 2 days of celebration like you've established the fast days? But Ibn Ezra says, they're admitting that we understand that until we come back to Eretz Yisrael, we have to keep the fasts. What did Zechariah say? If you all come back here and build the society of peace and truth, then what will happen? The fast days will be transformed into days of celebration. They say, we know. But Kiblu Hayudim et Hatzomot. Ibn Ezra says, this refers to the fast of the book of Zechariah, the fast of Tammuz and Av and Tishrei and Tevet. What this means is that the Jews took upon themselves to celebrate the days of Purim as they had taken upon themselves and their descendants to fast on the days of mourning. In other words, they're telling the Jews in Yerushalayim, look, we accepted your fast, now we're accepting also, please accept our days of celebration. But what they're also saying is, in the interim, what are we going to have to do? We're accepting to fast. Instead of returning to Eretz Yisrael and transforming these fasts into days of celebration. So on one hand, they recognize that they are living outside of Eretz Yisrael. On the other hand, what are they asking the Jews of Yerushalayim to do? Recognize that they do want to get along, to try to bridge this gap between Jews in the diaspora and Jews in Eretz Yisrael. Don't forget us, they're saying. Please remember that Shushan is important. And it seems as if it kind of worked. What do I mean by this? How do we celebrate? The Tanaim said, okay, we won't forget Shushan. We'll celebrate on the 15th, but where? Not everywhere. The main Purim is the 14th. But you know what, or how we're going to remember what you did in Shushan? We're going to celebrate on the 15th, particularly where? In walled cities like Shushan, walled cities versus unwalled cities that were conquered basically 1,300 years ago, again, before the time of the Tanaim, we're going to celebrate based on the walled cities during the time of Yehoshua ben Nun. In other words, we're going to recognize Shushan as a prelude to return to Eretz Yisrael and conquest of Eretz Yisrael. We're going to celebrate you, but because we're anticipating that you're eventually going to make your way back here. We're not going to forget about you because we still hope that you're going to make Aliyah soon. So we'll continue to celebrate your days, but with an Eretz Yisrael twist. And this is the Purim that we have today. But now let's try to understand Mishlochei Manot then from a different perspective. They instituted Mishlochei Manot, it seems on the most basic level then, in Eretz Yisrael. It was instituted, as we said, laharbot, simcha v're'ut, to ensure that everyone was going to join together. Now we understand, divrei shalom ve'emet, send care packages, yes, have potluck meals, so that everyone is going to feel the sense of camaraderie and unity. Interestingly, though, when Mordecai established it, and when he wrote initial letters about it, he says, Mishloach Manot and Matanot le'evyonim, and this is all to remember the story of Purim. How do Mishlochei Manot and Matanot le'evyonim remind us of the story of Purim? They don't remind us of the story, they remind us of the danger of Amachan Mufuzar Mufurad Bein Ha'amim. But you don't even say that. You said it reminds us of the annihilation. How do Mishlochei Manot and Matanot Levyonim reminds us of Haman's threat of genocide to the Jewish people? So now it's time for us to look at Megillat Esther entirely anew. Now we have to look at Megillat Esther from a Persian Jewish perspective, going back to the beginning of the story. The story doesn't begin in Perek Gimel with the threat against the Jewish people. It begins in Perek Aleph with Vashti being banished from the throne. And now, what do we generally say happens? The Na'arim recommended in Perek Bet, now that Achashverosh's wrath has subsided, they recommend not just to find a Reuta HaTova Mimena, as Memuchan had suggested. Chazal say, what was Memuchan suggesting? Marry from royalty. Come, marry my daughter. Or you have thousands of women in the harem waiting. Just take another woman. The Na'arim, the youngsters, suggest something else. They suggest as follows. Pasuk Bet, Vayamru Na'arei HaMelech Misharatav, Yivakshu LaMelech Na'arot Betulot Tovot Mar'eh. Generally, from the time that we're very young, we're taught that, what did they suggest? A beauty contest. And honestly, when you've always pictured the various women who are going to be sitting 6 months in Shem and Hamor and 6 months in Bisamim, honestly, were you picturing Ya'arot HaKarmel? That's probably how we did look at this story. Let's look at it entirely anew. The Na'arim say, this is what you're going to do, especially as the king. Take advantage of this. Yivakshu LaMelech Na'arot Betulot Tovot Mareh. Go out and look for very good-looking virgins. Vayafked HaMelech Pikidim. This isn't going to be a voluntary beauty contest. This is going to be an official law. He sends his officers, B'chol Medinot Malchuto, V'yikbitzu et kol na'ara betula. Picture it instead of officers taking betulot, v'yikbitzu, and gathering them together on the Persian Ungshamplatz, betulot tovot mareh, el Shushan Habira, el Beit Hanashim. How old is a betula in Persia during this time? Well, what was the average age that women in Persia, who weren't really respected at all, what was the average age of marriage? For that matter, in all of society during this time? We're in the 5th century BCE. Anyone know? 12. So if you're a betula, how old are you? 10, 11. So for all intents and purposes, we're going to consider most of these women, not women. They are 10-year-old girls who are going to be forcibly taken out of their families, taken away from their homes, and brought to a strange city, Shushan, El Yad Hege Sris HaMelech Shomer Hanashim. If this is Ya'arot HaKarmel, you do not need a guard. When do you need a guard? When you don't want to be where you are. When you're in a prison. When you want to run away. Because how many young women do you think there are when they go throughout the country and they collect all the beautiful looking 10-year-old girls? Today we would call this child abuse. And they're all brought to Shushan Habira, away from their families. And I can only imagine thousands, put where? No, they don't build new spas for them. Rather, there is a harem, and now the harem conditions will just be a little overcrowded. They're going to build, apparently, this Beit Hanashim, V'naton Tamru Kehen. And what are they given as they enter into? I'm just going to say this in a very stark manner, only to enable us to look at the story a little differently. As they come into the concentration camp, what are they given? We're going to see their identity is stripped from them entirely, and they're given Tamru Kehen. They're given a bag of cosmetics. Now, what would you want to receive when you first come? I would think a care package, a Hershey's bar. V'naton Tamru Kehen. What are they given? Cosmetics. No food. Or there is food, but very little food. V'na'ara asher titav b'nei hamelech timloch tachat Vashti. And only one of these women, who, even though they're really betulot, they're really 10-year-olds, but once they go through the proper preparation, by then we're going to womanize them basically, and they'll be a ne'ara. Vayitav hadavar b'nei hamelech. The king is fine with this. Vayaschen. איש יהודי היה בשושן הבירה ושמו מרדכי, בן יאיר בן שמי בן קיש איש ימיני, אשר הוגלה מירושלים עם הגולה אשר הגלתה. Read this in the tune of Eicha. Put on the background music to Schindler's List. This is not a happy story. Im Yechonia melech Yehuda, asher hagla Nebuchadnezzar melech Bavel. You're supposed to picture reliving Galut Yehoyachin. Vayhi omein et hadasa hi Esther. This is also a very strange terminology. He is the omein. What's an omein in Tanakh? Hayisa ha'omein et hayonek. An omein is a nursemaid. Actually, we don't really have an omein. We have an omenet or a menika. Why is Mordecai called a nursemaid? So Chazal say that he literally provided milk for her. He provides nourishment. She doesn't have a mother or father. He's her parental figure. Her older cousin takes care of her, provides for her, as a nursemaid does. Ein la avaim, v'hana'ara yefat toar v'tovat mareh. Uh-oh. Uvamot avi ima lekacha Mordechai lo lebat. Vayhi bi shamat dvar melech v'dato. Uvihi kavet na'arot rabot el Shushan habira. What does that mean? When these young 10-year-olds are collected, literally, to be brought in carts to Shushan Habira el Yad Hegai, Vatilakach Esther el Beit HaMelech el Yad Hegai Shomer HaNashim. Esther is taken. I can only imagine the scene. And this, I want to bring a little geula and thank Rabbi David Foreman for elucidating this. He says, imagine this. Imagine Mordecai and Esther living in the Jewish ghetto. And I can imagine that the situation isn't so great. And Mordecai tells Esther, Esther, listen, you're really good looking. And every day the SS officers, the Shushan Express officers, they come in looking for good looking girls. So every day while I'm out collecting some potatoes to make some potato soup for us, every day hide under the bed. Take your teddy bear with you and hide under the bed and stay there until I come home so that the Shushan officers don't find you. And one day Esther, again, she left her teddy bear a few feet from her bed and she went out just for a second to take that teddy bear. And as she was going back under the bed, what happened? A Shushan officer walks in and takes her. And a few moments later, Mordecai comes in. Esther, Esther, where are you? And you can imagine the distraught, the sense of not only for longing, but the sense of failure of Mordecai as he walks around. Where's Esther? I'm responsible. And I told my aunt and uncle I would take care of her. And she's gone. And I can imagine Mordecai, wherever he was, running after the carts all the way to Shushan, finding the one camp in which Esther is. Vatitav hana'ara be'inav. Esther is taken to Hegai Shomer HaNashim. Vatisa chesed lefanav. And then we find something so strange. Vayivahel, and he would quickly give her tamrukeha. He would give her cosmetics. Ve'et manoteha. And he would give her, what are manot? Food items. But no one else is getting food items. And what does this mean? He's quickly giving them to her. Latetla. ואת שבע הנערות הראויות לתת לה מבית המלך, וישנה ואת נערותיה לתו בית הנשים. לא הגידה אסתר את המוות מולדתה. And you should know that Esther is not divulging her Jewish identity. Why? כי מרדכי ציווה לה אשר לא תגיד. Mordecai always told her, don't say where you are. There is latent anti-Semitism. Pasuk Yud Aleph, uvachol yom vayom. What did Mordecai do? He followed the carts all the way to the barbed wire fence. And every day, Mordecai mitalech lifnei chatzar beit hanashim. He's not allowed in the courtyard. So he walks by the barbed wire, ladat et shlom Esther, to see how Esther is doing. Uma ya'aseba, and what shall be done to her. Because I can only imagine, when you have thousands of 10-year-old girls all together, living probably in despicable conditions, what we're going to see dehumanized for 12 months. I can imagine that what are these girls doing? Probably trying to snatch whatever food items the other one has. I can imagine that these young girls, knowing that the only chance of survival they have is to be chosen, one in hundreds of thousands, to be chosen as the queen, as the most beautiful one. They're probably scratching each other in the middle of the night. Again, and knowing, by the way, that there are thousands of virgins that could also be disqualified as soon as they're no longer virgins. I'm sure that there are family relatives who are coming to rape some of these young women. And just like Miriam stands from afar wondering, Ma ya'asebo, what are the Egyptians going to do to the basket of Moshe Rabbeinu? She's also anticipating the worst. Of course, they're going to come and they're just going to drown him. Mordecai also is wondering what's going to happen. Maybe it's Mordecai who is bribing Hege, the Sris HaMelech, the Shomer HaNashim. He's bribing the guard to give her not only her regular cosmetics, but to give her manot, vayivahel. And Haggai is doing this so that he won't be caught, so that he'll do it very quickly. He just hides the Hershey kisses that Mordecai is sending. He hides them in her cosmetic bag. Vayivahel et tamrukev et manotaha. And I can imagine, and you'll see why, that what is Mordecai providing her with? Not just Hershey kisses, but also some vitamins. Take these vitamins. Here's some oatmeal. Take the oatmeal. That will help you survive. And I'm sure that he accompanies it with little notes. Esther, I'm sorry that I abandoned you, but I really didn't. And I'm here to take care of you. And Esther, I love you. And I know you feel alone, but you're not, because I'm here every day watching out for you. And I know you're wondering where your next meal is going to come from, but don't worry, I have that covered. And I know that you're so scared, because you know that after you're brought to the king, you're then going to be placed in the worst conditions. You're going to be placed in the Beit HaPilakshim. You're going to live like those prostitutes in Les Miserables. You're going to live in horrific conditions. But I'm telling you that it's going to be okay. And keep your head high, but don't reveal your identity. P.S. I really love you. P.S. again. You're a bat melech. You're bat Avichayil. You're from the descendants of Shaul. And here are some extra Hershey kisses. Those are the manot. And we're going to prove it very soon. And now it makes sense. Uvahagia tor na'ara v'na'ara lavo lamelech Achashverosh miketz hayot lo kedat hanashim 12 chodesh. We thought that this is such a nice spot. Take a look at this. What are they doing for 12 months? 6 months, they're immersed in oil, the myrrh oil. And 6 months in bisamim and tamrukei hanashim, with all different cosmetics. What does this remind you of? This is the process of embalming a mummy. In other words, what are these women doing, young women, girls, what are they doing for 12 months? They're being embalmed. They're being dehumanized. They're literally just sitting in oil and cosmetics. Ubazeh hana'ara ba el hamelech et kol asher tomar yinatein la lavo imami beit hanashim ad beit hamelech. In order to get her to go from beit hanashim to beit hamelech, the king has to bribe her. She asks for something. Whatever she says will be given in order so that she'll come. Why would any girl not want to come to the king? Because she knows that after being with the king, what happens? She lives the rest of her life as an old maid in the harem. After being with the king, you can't be with any other man. After being with the king, she ruins all chances of ever being married and raising a family. After being with the king, she's going to be placed with hundreds and thousands of other girls in the prison of the concubines. And therefore, he has to bribe her to come. And I can imagine, what do you think most of these young girls ask for? Can I have one last nourishing meal? Can you give me my last supper before I'm malnourished again? But not Esther. בערב היא באה, ובבוקר היא שבה אל בית הנשים שני, אל יד שהשגה סריס המלך שומר הפילגשים. They have to be guarded again. Lo tavo od halamelech, they're going to stay in this harem. unless the king can happen to remember her name amongst the hundreds and thousands of nameless young girls. Ubagia tor Esther bat Avichayil dod Mordecai. Esther hasn't forgotten her name, because every day Mordecai reminds her, you are Esther bat Avichayil. I am your cousin. I am taking care of you. Asher lakach lo levat lavo al hamelech lo biksha davar. Esther doesn't need a good meal. Why not? Mordecai has been sending her manot. Kimat asher yomar hegei sris hamelech shomer hanashim vati Esther noseit chen beinei kol roeha. And of course, Esther looks a little more beautiful than the other young women. Why? They're emaciated. She still has color in her cheeks because she has these extra manot. Reminiscent of Asara b'Tevet, of the Churban. Vayahav HaMelech et Esther mikol hanashim. Vatisachin v'chesed lefanav mikol habetulot. Vayasem keter b'rosha. Vayamlicha tachat Vashti. And even when Esther is taken then, notice that she was taken, the hikabetz, the concentration camps began. The collection of the women began in the 3rd year. That's how Megillat Esther begins. The 3rd year of Achashverosh. But the first round of virgins, the first rounds of 10-year-olds need a year to prepare to become womanly in a year. So by then, we find that Esther isn't going to be coronated until the 7th year of the king. That means how many cycles of thousands of young women have already been through the Beit Hanashim? Again, the first cycle was in the 3rd year. That means the 4th year was the first year of selection or lack of selection. And imagine this then. Again, the 3rd year, the 4th year, the 5th year, the 6th year, the 7th year. There have already been, Esther is basically the 4th machzor. That means there are hundreds and thousands. And by the way, even after Esther is going to be crowned, Vayas HaMelech Mishne Gadol Chosar Avadav et Mishne Esther Vanachal Medinot Asav Vayitei Maseit Kiyad HaMelech Uvikavetz Betulot Shenit. What is the king still doing? Why not? Again, collect some more young girls. O Mordechai Yoshei B'Shar HaMelech. Ein Esther magetet moladeta vetama kasher tivala Mordechai vet mamar Mordechai Esther osa kasher haita ba'amna ito. Esther is forever beholden to Mordecai because Mordecai was her omen, literally her nursemaid, taking care of nourishment for her, not only while she was by him in the house, but even in preparation for her becoming queen. So now we understand this a little more. What does Mordecai agree? What has to be established? What did the Jews, whether they be the ones in Shushan, in Eretz Yisrael, beyond, what do they all understand? Do you know what you have to remember? Not just the Mishta and Simcha after the war. Remember how this happened. How did it happen? It happened with Mishloach Manot, Ish L'Reyehu. It happened through Mordecai, the Ish Yehudi, sending manot to Ru'uta Hatova Mimena, to Esther's nickname, Ish L'Reyehu. You have to remember how the salvation came about. And did just come about through military victories. It came about because of day in, day out echpatiyut. Because day in and day out Mordecai cared for Esther. Because day in and day out he made sure that she would receive a little note. He made sure that she would receive what every person needed. He made sure that she wouldn't lose her identity and a sense of humanity. What they're telling us is maybe a little different than what we've always pictured, Mishluchei Manot. You only have to send it even to one person, and you could save a life. And it doesn't have to be a fancy bouquet or a fancy fruit basket. It could be a smile to someone who looks very depressed. It can be even a little WhatsApp message with a cute emoji. It can be a phone call to a friend. You looked a little upset today. Is everything okay? It can be a Shiva call visit. Mishloach manot ish l'reyehu. That's how you'll remember how to save people. And now we understand all the more. Mordecai is saying, these are divrei shalom ve'emet. It doesn't even literally have to be food. Just make sure that you remember what's going to bring salvation, what's going to bring us unity, words of peace and truth, but that are accompanied by action, by mishloach manot. And let's prove it, because I know this is probably very disturbing for many of us, to look at the story as a story of basic human survival, because we don't want to think of Esther being placed in a prison camp. But truth be told, she's not the only one. And Achashverosh is not the only one can even say, detestable king. Let's look at a few years prior to Esther, the story of Daniel. בשנת 3 למלכות יהויקים מלך יהודה בא נבוכדנצר מלך בבל ירושלים ויצר עליה. In 605 BCE, the 3rd, 4th year of Yehoiakim, autonomy is stripped from the Jewish people. Nebuchadnezzar is going to establish Babylonian government in the lands of Israel. Vayitena Adonai biado et Yehoiakim melech Yehuda umiksat klei Beit Elokim. And he already, before the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, this, as we know, is going to be 19 years even before the destruction. 19 years. What do we find? Miksek klei Beit Elokim. He already takes some of the utensils from the Beit HaMikdash and he brings them to Eretz Shinar, to Bavel. Vetakilim hivi Beit Otzar Elokav. And then the king decides to do something else. Vayomer HaMelech la'ashpenaz Rav Sarisav. He also has a lot of eunuchs as part of his cabinet. Lavi mibnei Yisrael umizera hamlucha umin hapartimim. Let's provide a little bit of a Megillah experiment. You ready? Let's take the best and the brightest of the children of the aristocracy. This is before 597, before Harashu Masker, before the monarchy and the artisans and the intellectual elite are exiled. First, Nebuchadnezzar commands that young children be taken. Yeladim asher ein bahem kol mum. How old do you think these children are that are going to be taken from their homes? 5, 6 years old. V'tovei mareh. Remind you of anyone? Take the good-looking ones. Umaskilim b'kol chokhmah. Put them through IQ tests. Take the most beautiful, the smartest, yodei da'at, mevinei madad, the ones who have natural genius and already know the sciences, vasher koach bahem, and also the physically elite, la'amod behechal hamelech, because they're going to be on their feet literally from morning to night, and I'm not going to let them sit down. La'amod ulelamdam sefer uleshon kastim, and also teach them. Let's see how well they pick up on languages. I want you to teach them the Babylonian language. And he puts them through, and not only all these tests, but a very intensive training program. And part of the training program is as follows. Take these 5, 6-year-old boys, take them away from their families, and we're going to have a selection process. Let's see who are going to be the best and the brightest of the officers of the king. So we're going to train them in an ultra-Spartan manner from the time that they're 5 years old. And I'm going to put them on a very strict diet. This is a test. What is he going to do? I'm going to appoint pre-apportioned rations, mi pat bag hamelech. What is pat? They're going to get bread. They're going to be on a diet of bread, umiyayin mishtav. They're on a strict diet of bread and wine. Let's see how nutritious that is. Ulegadlam shanim shalosh. And not 12 months. How long are they going to be in this training program for? Learning from morning to night, on their feet from morning to night, and eating all day just what? They get one ration of bread and wine. Today we would call this child abuse. Severe torture. From 5 to 8 years old, this is what's going on. Umiksatam yamdu lefnei hamelech. And only some of them, Nebuchadnezzar already knows, only some of them will literally survive. What will happen to the rest of them? They'll die. But that's great. That's how we perform a selection. Again, only the strongest will be able to survive. Why is it that we only know of Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah? They're the only ones who survived. Vayasim lehem sarah sarisim shemot. And their identity is going to be stripped from them. No longer are they going to be Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. They aren't going to be given numbers, but they're going to be given Persian names. Hananiah, Daniel will be called Belshazzar, Hananiah, Shadrach, Mishael, Meshach, Azariah, Avadnego. Vayasam Daniel alibo. And Daniel decided, Asher lo yitka'al bepat bag hamelech, that he does not want this diet because it's disgusting. Uviyen mishtav, and he doesn't want to drink the wine of the king. And Chazal ask, but it's pikuach nefesh. Was the food in concentration camps kosher? No, but who cares? Because pikuach nefesh, that's what you eat. But Daniel decided, it's disgusting. And the only way I'm going to hold on to any sense of my humanity is if I retain my identity. And I will not eat pat bak hamelech and yain mishtav. Okay, that's a sure formula for being killed. So what does he do? Vakesh misar hasarisav. He has his own Haggai. He goes to Sar Sarisav Asher lo yikael, and he explains to him, I don't want this diet. Vayitena lukim Daniel lechesed l'rachamim lefnei Sar hasarisim, just like Esther and Haggai. Vayomer Sar hasarisim leDaniel. Okay, I have some bad news to tell you. Yarei ani et Adoni hamelech. I'm afraid of Nebuchadnezzar, Asher mina et ma'achalchem vet mishtechem, because he has clearly apportioned ration for all of you. So if you don't eat your ration, Daniel, what's going to happen? He's going to know. Again, this is an experiment over here. He's going to know. And then, Asher lama yireh pnechem zoafim min hayeladim asher gidgolchem. He's going to see that you are not on the same diet as they are. And then he's going to, and then he's going to find out that I changed your diet and he's going to kill me. Daniel doesn't give up. What does he do? If he can't go to Haggai, he can't go to the head officer, what does he do instead? He goes to the Meltzar. He goes to the capo, who doesn't have much to lose anyway. Asher minasar hasarisim, al Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. Nasna et avadacha yamim asara. And he proposes, let's try this only for 10 days. Instead of giving us the bread and wine, give us instead min hazeroim. Put us on a vegan diet. Give us seeds. Vinochla umayim vinishte. Give us seeds and water. And why would the Meltzar want to do this? Well, chances are he's going to be killed anyway. But why else would he want to do that? Okay, you eat the seeds, and now the Meltzar, who himself is starving, will have four extra portions of bread and wine. And sure enough, he warns them, he says, wait a second, they propose to him. They say, let's see after 10 days. You'll compare the way that we look with the way that these other kids look. It's up to you. Do you want to do this? And they try it out for 10 days. Turns out a vegan diet is better than a bread and wine diet. Ubri'e basar. They have more color to their cheeks. Min kol hayeladim ha'ochlim et pat pag hamelech. Vahi al-matzar nosei et pat pagam. And this way the matzar, he ate their food and he drank their wine. V'notein lahem zeronim, and gave them seeds. Vayeladim ha'ila arbatan natan lahem elokim madah haskel b'chol sefer ha'chochma. And these are the only 4 children who survived. And they ended up becoming officers of the king. And everyone else went to, so to speak, the Beit HaPilakshim, where they all died off. And therefore, it's not strange to think that the exact same thing happened to Esther. And it's not strange then to realize that they both received help from within. In Daniel's case, it was the Meltzar offering him his diet. And in Esther's case, it was the Manot. And as we said, these are manot, not just a food. Let's prove it from Sefer Shmuel, where we also find Elkanah gives Penina manot, u'lechana yitain mana achat apayim. Does Chana need a larger portion of food? Mana here doesn't just mean food. It means manot, mishlochei manot ish l'reyehu, echpatiyut, ki yad Chana aheh v'Hashem sagar rachma. It means reaching out to everyone else and showing them that we care. And that's why, what does Mordecai say? Don't just remember the miracle, remember how the miracle happened. It happened because of Manot of Mordecai to Esther. It happened because of little thank you notes and little I love you too notes. And it happened because of little WhatsApp messages. It happened because of Achpatiyut. And then what does Mordecai add? And it also happens because of Matanot le'evyonim. Wait a second. What are Matanot le'evyonim? Aren't those manot? No, they're a little different. It's a matana le'evyon. In Tanakh, how is an evyon defined? An evyon is defined as someone who can't even go to sleep with his own clothing because all he has is one shirt to wear. An evyon, basically, then, is someone who's defined as someone who doesn't have clothing. Is there anyone in Megillat Esther who didn't have clothing? Yes, Mordecai. Mordecai, if you remember, in Esther, Perek Dalid, Mordecai yadad kol asher nasa, vayikra Mordecai begadav, vayilbas sak ve'efer. He's wearing sackcloth. Vayetze b'toch ha'ir, vayizak zaka gdola umara. Vayavo ad lefnei shar hamelech, kein lavo shar hamelech b'levu sak. Uv'chol medina medina. Everyone is in a state of mourning. And Esther hears that Mordecai is in sackcloth. And what does she do? She doesn't ignore it. She's sick in her stomach. Vatishlach begadim lahalvish et Mordecai. And she sends the evyon his clothing. And because she's willing to reach out to Mordecai, she's also willing to listen to what he has to say. Lech knos et kol hayudim. Mishlochei manot and matanot levyonim literally are the ways in which the partnership, the caring, the concern, and ultimately the success of Mordecai and Esther in Beit HaMelech was able to occur. It wasn't just about what happened on the battlefield. It's what happened behind the barbed wire. It's what happened and in the crevices of the palace, in the secret chambers that sometimes we forget that that's where Gemilut Chasadim first comes. Mordecai and Esther write, B'chol tokef, l'kayem et yimei ha'purim ha'ile. These are divrei shalom ve'emet. And it's true that the matanot, mishlochei manot, ish l'reyehu, was a reference to ish Yehudi haya b'shushan habira, was Mordecai to Esther. And even though the ideal ish Yehudi mentioned in Zechariah is the ish Yehudi that should take the goyim to Yerushalayim, he says, I'm telling you, this is the way that we're going to build society. Before we build a proper society in Eretz Yisrael that's going to be based on shalom ve'emet, let's try to do it in all of our communities. Let's try to do it in Chutz La'aretz as well. So that then when we make Aliyah, we can just continue all the chesed organizations that we started there. Let's try to make sure that we join all together. Let's try to preserve the nature of Purim. Let's try to remember what the true secret of Achdut is all about, and how the nace of Purim, not only the holiday, the Mishtan Simcha, but the true miracle is going to be remembered, is going to be perpetuated, is going to be preserved. It's going to be with those few thoughtful moments, those Mishlochei Manot Ish L'Reyehu, and the Matanot Levyonim, that ensure that not only will Mordecai be paraded around Bilvush Malchut, but we'll make sure La Yudim Haita Ora V'Simcha V'Sason Vikar. And if we're able to observe this properly, then we can form that society of Shalom Ve'emet, hopefully with the government soon, V'Meira V'Yameinu, and celebrate a Purim of Simcha and Sason. Purim Sameach.